Hey everybody, what's going on? You know how sometimes you're playing a game of Blackjack and you get dealt a pair of cards that is not that great, and you decide to just take a chance and double down? Well, that's what I just did with my Keychron keyboard.
In my previous PC mods and upgrades video, I told you all about the Keychron K4 mechanical keyboard that I got for my home office setup, and how I wasn't totally thrilled with the brown Gateron switches. I think I said I wasn't feeling them and wanted to give it a little more time to see if I get used to them. Another month passed and nope, I still wasn't enjoying them. Certainly not as much as I was enjoying the blue switches on my Logitech G513 keyboard. What don't I like about the brown switches? Well, first let me explain what a brown switch is, for those of you scratching your heads about all this mechanical keyboard stuff. I'm pretty new to all of it myself. I just started getting into it this year. So, mechanical keyboards are all the rage right now, with PC enthusiasts and gamers. They offer a wide range of personalization and customization options. And I'm not just talking about appearance. You can literally change the way the keys feel and sound when you press one. There are various types of switches that can be installed that change these attributes. And like any hobby you can imagine, it can get pretty expensive when you start to get serious about it. Some of these fancier keyboards can run you over $300. That seems really expensive when you can get a run-of-the-mill computer keyboard for like $20. But like I said, it's about enthusiasts and finding a keyboard that gives you an enjoyable experience. Believe me, I was like those of you who think this keyboard I have is totally fine. I can type and work, and I don't need anything better. It's true, you don't need a better keyboard. But that's like saying, I don't need a fancy car. This Geo Metro with 55 horsepower and no air conditioning can get me to work just fine. That's certainly true, but given the choice, wouldn't you rather drive to work in a Lexus with nice amenities, or maybe have a Porsche to drive on the weekends? Whether you actually want one or not, I think we can agree that those would objectively be a better driving experience in most circumstances. And that's what you get with these mechanical keyboards. Back to the switches. The keyboard industry has taken to using colors to represent the different kinds of popular switches. A blue switch is known for being clicky and tactile. When you press down on a blue switch, you feel a little resistance that actually requires more pressure to overcome, and it feels like a little bump in the keystroke. The key also tends to make a louder click when you press it. The design of the switch is such that when you feel the bump, that's the same point in the press that the key is actuated, and the computer registers the key as being pressed. And the blues are a popular choice for typing. A red switch is kind of the opposite. It's described as a linear switch, where there is no change in the resistance. The key feels smooth as you press it, and there is no bump or click sound at all. Some people prefer this kind of feeling for office work and also for gaming. Not to mention that it's quieter, so it won't annoy your office mates or other people around you. If you want to type stealth mode during a phone call or video conference, then the red is probably the best choice. Now we get to the browns. A brown is supposed to be somewhere in the middle. It's quiet like a red switch, but still tactile like a blue. And so I thought, I like the feel of the blue switches on my Logitech G513, but maybe for the work PC I want something quieter. But it ended up not being what I expected. Yes, the keys are quieter than the blues, but the tactile bump is not as good. And perhaps most annoyingly, the position of the bump in the keystroke is not the same as the point where the key is registered by the computer as being pressed. The bump comes first, and you still have to keep pressing down before the key is actuated. This makes zero sense to me and causes me to make more typing errors because you become accustomed to feeling the tactile bump as a way to register just how much to press the keys and try to type lightly for speed. But with the Browns, it's a lie. You have to press harder and in fact nearly bottom out on a key press to make sure you're actuating it. I don't know if this is just the way that Gateron Browns work or if all Brown switches are like that, but it just doesn't work well for me. On the other hand, with the blue switches, you get a definitive confirmation with every key press. Everyone has their own tastes and preferences, of course, and it seems like blue is the way to go for me. So I was considering it kind of an L in terms of a purchase decision. I took a bit of a gamble by trying the Browns, and it didn't pay off. Part of the beauty of mechanical keyboards is that they are customizable. That means if you don't like the brown switches, you can switch them out for a red or blue switch. So I started thinking about buying a different set of switches, most likely blue switches. But they are kind of expensive for a set of 100 keys or so for a full-sized keyboard. I'd probably have to spend about $60 to get a different set of switches. So when a friend mentioned that Keychron keyboards were on sale at Amazon, I decided to check it out. Turns out that I could get a Keychron C2 wired keyboard with white backlighting, hot swappable board, and Gateron Blues switches for only around $65. It basically was cheaper to buy a whole new keyboard with the switches I wanted than to buy a set of switches and swap them out. And now I have two keyboards instead of one. So yeah, I doubled down and this is the C2 keyboard. The C2 is a full width keyboard, so nearly identical in size to the Logitech G513 with full-size keys, arrow keys in the more traditional layout, and a numpad. I was glad to forego the RGB lighting and just get the plain old white backlighting this time around. And although a compact wireless keyboard like the K4 gives a nice clean aesthetic look to the desktop, I felt like I was kind of ambivalent and was just fine with a corded setup, so the C2 was the perfect choice. In fact, I think this was the keyboard configuration that I should have gotten in the first place. The K4 looks great, but the way the keys are all jammed together and in a non-traditional layout, I found myself fumbling around at times looking for the arrow keys and for the delete, home, page up, and page down keys, for instance. I knew right away when I opened the box and felt the blue Gateron switches that it was a huge improvement in feeling. The blue switches feel very similar to the Logitech Blues that I already know and love.
Oh yeah, much better.
So it was a relief to know that I had made the right call this time. I was worried that the Thegadaran Blues wouldn't feel as good as the Logitech Blues. The sound is a little different, but the tactile feel is just as good to me. I didn't really think that switches could make a big difference to a casual user like me, but it turns out even a doofus like me can develop some tastes and preferences for a mechanical keyboard. Here I am being nitpicky about key feels and sounds. Who would have guessed? And so I've got the C2 as my main daily driver for work, and I'm happily clicking and clacking away in my home office. The K4 isn't going into the bin, though. I'll continue to use it with my iMac. The wireless capability to switch between 3 different devices is very handy. I don't want to say that Browns are terrible and I won't use them, but I do prefer the Blues a lot more. Who knows, maybe I will still order another set of switches to try something else in the future, since that is part of the fun with these mechanical keyboards. Are you a mechanical keyboard enthusiast? Let me know in the comments below what your favorite switch is, or if you have any suggestions for me.
Well, that's it for this update. Thanks as always for watching. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves.